I remember this group of beautiful young people coming from Zagreb, and I remember one particular occasion when one of the tiny little boys, I can't remember what his name was, but we couldn't find him. And we searched through the house, and right on the top floor of the house there was this very, very big Victorian bath. And he'd filled the bath up full, and he was virtually swimming in the water because he was so small and the water was so deep. And of course he'd not been able to have a bath for a long, long time. So this hot bath was just wonderful, that he was sort of floating in and swimming in.
Alone.
Alone, on his own, yes.
Oh.
And then I remember at the same time the young people were in Hazelwood, there was this group of young people from Germany that a choreographer called Royston.
Yes, Royston.
And they all had some kind of learning difficulties, and we were worried about, or were concerned, how the two groups would connect, because of course we had the young children from Zagreb who come from a mixed group, who in a sense were obviously traumatized with this young exuberant group of some of them had Down syndrome. Now, young people with Down syndrome, any Down syndrome person is incredibly affectionate and loving. And so in a sense, their naivety enabled them to just act with these young people from Croatia and Bosnia without any inhibitions, which may enable the young people to respond in a very natural way. It was beautiful to see because initially it was worrying, but they interacted in a sense. Do you remember that? The young people from Germany.
I remember.
It was a wonderful interaction. And then this young group of people from Germany, Royston had been doing a production with them, and they performed in this theatre in Plymouth.
I think we
all went. Yeah. We all went, and to see these young people from Germany performing, and it was just magical, you know, because you saw these people with great confidence dancing on stage, and to see the faces of the young people from Bosnia and Croatia, it was wonderful. It was very natural. And that night we drove back, we were in buses. There was a full moon, so when we got back, the skies were clear and the moon was full, and everybody went off to their bedrooms, and Hazelwood, when there is a full moon in summer, is absolutely beautiful. And I remember dear Anna, who had come from a very difficult situation, and it was an awful lot of responsibility to be looking after all these young people. And Nebojša, who she brought with her, he was suddenly the interpreter and the facilitator, and this young man, Nebojša, grew up a lot during that time that they were there, because he suddenly had a great role of looking after, of interpreting, and just making the whole.
And this group, he was responsible.
He took on a great responsibility for them, and he communicated very well, and yeah, they loved him, and they, yes. What else can...
I was in the kitchen
Yes.
and with the dishes.
Yes.
It was...
It was a difficult time for you, Anna.
Really.
A very, very difficult time. And I think maybe you hadn't fully realized what that kind of responsibility, what it would mean to look after those children. And Naboisha was there and helped to speak to us.
But
Is that how you feel?
find also someone from people who work with
In the
children.
house?
Yes, yes.
Everybody, yes, because there were other people. We had people who were
It was
there for bed and
different.
breakfast, different nationalities, different backgrounds.
But to do
Yes,
something.
yes, and they did artwork, and they did some movement with Royston. It was a mixture of things, and they played in the grounds, beautiful grounds, and went off for walks and got lost and got found, and it was just a very extraordinary experience. And predominantly the weather was, well, sometimes it rained, sometimes it was sunshine.
But
It
not
was very
always
good.
rain.
No,
It was also the sun.
yes. And we had expeditions, and we went out
On
to the
trip.
seaside.
We were also on the trip around
Yes,
Plymouth.
we went round Plymouth, and we went down to the beach. We went down to the beach, and what else did we do? There was a lot that went on during that month. And it was wonderful to see, because for people who had come to Hazelwood just as bed and breakfast, not knowing, one, that there was a group of people with learning disabilities from Germany who didn't speak English, and a group of young people from a very traumatizing situation, and then other people who just come for 2 or 3 nights holiday. And the way everybody interacted, it was extraordinary. I think that, especially with the young people from Germany who have this lack of inhibition, the young people.
How many?
I think there were about 14 or 15 of them.
They didn't stay in.
No, they stayed down in the stable flat and the chapel cottage. So they were staying somewhere else. But when they came together, this lack of, in a sense, of inhibition on their part made it very much easier for children who were, as I said, in a state of trauma or concern. So yes, it was like a melting pot of different people with different concerns and different worries and different hopes and every, you know.
But with the children is always something new.
Yes, exactly. They had new things.
This,
And am I right in thinking some of them had dental work done? Did they go off to, there was a dentist in Kingsbridge who gave free service to some of the children with very bad teeth. Do you remember that?
No, no, I
didn't. You don't? Well, there was a wonderful dentist, and obviously the effects of the war had meant that one of the great problems, both for adults and children, were their teeth, because they hadn't been able to, one, there was very little toothpaste in either Croatia or Bosnia, and so this dentist, gave free treatment to some of the children with the worst problems. So apart from that, wonderful lunches and breakfasts and dinner in the big dining room, and trying to get the right food for them. And of course they loved crisps and biscuits and a lot of things that were maybe not so good for them, but it was an amazing experience
yes, yes, yes.
for everybody.
Yes, yes.
And out of them, while these young people were staying with us, we had faxes that were coming through from Zagreb saying that, asking us to attend the first meeting of the peace initiative that was being set up by Emma and Msuda and Sharifa. And we had these invitations to go to the first meeting in Samobor. And I was due to go back to a job. Everybody had an awful lot of things going on, and we thought, how on earth can we go to this meeting? And in the end, these faxes keep coming through saying, please will you come to this meeting? And I remember standing in the kitchen and reading this and thinking, we have to go. We have to go to this meeting. There was sort of no question about it. It was something we absolutely had to do. So everybody got released from the work they were doing, and so out of that visit of the young people, we came to Samobor, just outside Zagreb, for the first time, and it was the start of a 26-year journey. And I remember standing next to a woman in a school in Samobor from Vukovar, and she was telling me about what had happened to her in Vukovar with an interpreter. And I remember her saying to me, will you come back to see us? And I said, of course we will. And suddenly I said, do you realise what you have just said? Because that is a promise you have to keep. Dobre jutro. So the next meeting was 2 months later in November. And the weather was terrible. The snows came very early in November. The snows came early. And there had been some bombing, you remember, in Zagreb. In Zagreb, yes. Two or three bombs had gone off. So we had messages from Msuda, don't come, we worry. And we were halfway there anyway, so we said, no, we go. And then we were crossing a border, and there were 5 of us in the car, and we got stuck between one border and another with all this snow, and we thought we're going to be late for the start of the meeting. And then suddenly just everything cleared, and we arrived for the meeting, and it was all it was sad. There was a real sad feeling in the room, but beautiful dried fruits and nuts and coffee.
Yes.
It was a beautiful, the table looked beautiful with this food on. People's spirits were a little bit low because there was the worry about the bombing in Zagreb. But that second meeting felt more important than going to the first one, because it helped push something on. Then the next meeting we came to was in January, and the next meeting was in March. It was every 2 months we came. And then the first big conference was in May of '94 in Samobor. But out of being asked if we could have these young people for a respite holiday, as I say, led to this 26-year involvement with Bosnia, Croatia, the whole problems. And every year we would sort of think, well, will we be going back next year? And we were always asked to come. And sometimes we came and we thought, what are we going for this year? And there'd always be one particular thing that suddenly happened and you thought, that's why we came. And sometimes knowing afterwards was more important than knowing before, because you sort of travelled in a kind of innocence. You weren't expecting to have to do anything particular, but it became apparent afterwards. And so, yes, the war ended, and then people said, well, why do you still have to go? But there are always problems that remain, And one of the things I remember feeling at some point was that peace is not something you ever arrive at. It's not a stationary position. Peace is something that continually and in a sense eternally we have to work towards. It's never achieved finally. what more can I say? I mean, except that my whole experience of being led into this, in a way, has changed my life.
Oh.
Oh yes, because I think one, in knowing how difficult things were during the war, I never go to bed without appreciating having a nice, comfortable bed. I never use electricity without remembering those terrible times when there was no electricity. I never use water without thinking of all those times there was no water. And that's very powerful. It makes you, that whole experience made me, and I think all of us, appreciate things in a very different way because we are very lucky. We have a lot. And also the whole thing about having your home or your house, because many people lost their homes, lost their houses.
Yes.
So that to be able to say that you had a home and a house was a very privileged thing to have. So I would always feel, I would always want my house, my home, I want it for family and friends, and I want it to be used not just for me, but for everybody. And that came out of very much out of Bosnia and that whole experience of the war, that we need to share, we need to include.
You, please. You didn't say your name.
My name is Annie.
Annie, yes.
So we have a deep love for this country, a deep love for this people. And we never stop. We all have, I have 2 sets of large photographs in my home. One is of all the children that over the years either came to England or we took to France. And the other one is of all, can you stir that for me? Is of all the amazing women we have met. So that every day they are part of my life. Every day.
Oh, you have now a rich
Very rich.
life.
A very rich life. And now many friends who live in Croatia, Bosnia.
Yes. Do you
And we
remember?
think of you a lot. We think of you a lot. What were you going to say?
I wanted to ask
remember?
for one singer from Croatia.
We were trying to think of her name.
In the first time she was translated.
Yes, beautiful
And
woman.
yes,
folk
and
singer.
she's very popular in Croatia and around in many countries.
Beautiful voice. And do you remember we were having dinner in Samobor?
If you do you have Facebook?
I don't. No.
But who?
Well, Annabelle has Facebook.
You will see. She is
Is
friend.
she on YouTube?
Yes.
What is her name? It begins with D. Is it Dana or Diana or?
No.
We forgot her name, but we were talking about her, and I remember this wonderful dinner we had in Samobor in that restaurant, and she sang for us. She always sang for us, and then she came to England, and she sang in Hazelwood.
I wanted to ask
Yes.
if she was with
With a guitar.
Yes. Dunya.
Thank you. Dunya. Is that D-U-N-J-A?
Da.
Dunya.
Dunya.
Beautiful. She was great friends with Royston, and because she got ill. She was ill for a while, wasn't she?
Who?
Dunya was.
Oh, now she's good.
She's good.
Dunya. Knebel.
I did. We never knew her surname. It was
Knebel.
all the. May I have some coffee?
Uh, yes. Uh, can I now
Finish.
finish?
Yes, of course.
Good.
Thank you, Anna.
Eh?
And you are a dear friend. And our experience with you in Hazelwood was wonderful, at times sad, at times difficult because of things. And now we meet you after all these years. And it was a great thrill for all of us when we realized you were here after all of this time to tell your story as well and connect up. Wonderful. So thank you very much.
And it is good. Now we are together.
Yes, exactly.
But
Sad that one person is missing, and that's Julian.
yes, and her sister.
Izzy, yes.
And I saw the picture here,
Yes.
and now I remember some.
Some things.
Yes.
So thank
Some
you.
people. Thank you also.